Assembly had a 10-inch spacer made that is used on their chop saws for cutting parts that are smaller than the fence stop setting allows. The problem is that they only had one spacer and two saws. Because of this, there was potential for waiting if the spacer was in use on one saw when another person needed it. It also required more motion to acquire it, as it was not nearby both saws. The late suggested that they take a few seconds and make another spacer to reduce both of these wastes. And Justin Indoors finds a simple solution for dealing with badly damaged superglue bottle caps. Simply throw a glue bottle cap on there that we already have in stock, and you have a fully functional, non-irritating superglue bottle again. Simple solutions can be great ideas. And Vonda had some min-max bins designated for hardwood rail scraps in the door department. When all of the scraps are put on the top of the rack, it can make it difficult to see how much usable scrap there is. It is also difficult to stack and restack scraps on the rack, as well as an increased likelihood of falling pieces. Bins help the operator to know how much usable scrap there is, as well as set limits on how much is too much to save. If there are a lot of scraps on the rack, they can build up, making it look like there is plenty of usable stock, when in reality there may not be enough material to finish a job when considering the number of longer pieces needed. For small amounts of scraps, they can certainly be stored on the rack with the rest of the items. But for items that generate a lot of scrap, creating min-max bins can be a good way of designating what to save and what not to save, as well as to set limits so that we don't continue to save more and more scrap than will ever be used. But remember, if these standards are not properly communicated or followed, it will likely fall back into the old standard. For this reason, it is important to train individuals to follow the standard guidelines set in place and hold each other to the new standards. In face frames, they had a home for their brazing material on the floor, mixed with other odds and end items. They soon realized that it had a tendency to wander onto the floor and get in the walkway. When this material was needed, it also required them, at times, to sort it out of the other material in order to acquire it. It was also not very obvious how much stock they had on hand, which could result in waiting when they went to grab what they needed, only to find it out of stock. They decided to make a new home on the wall nearby, which keeps them separated from the other material and easy to acquire when needed. It also makes it very easy to see how much they have on hand. Christina and Assembly redid their drawer box spacers to be the same size and improved the labeling, so they can better identify the correct use, reducing waiting and defects. And Curtis had the idea for improving the way of building and installing wine racks. They now build a box around the wine rack that is made of solid wood to prevent splitting. It also prevents pins from blowing out when shooting the wine rack into place, which was a risk when installing the old way. Thanks everybody for your efforts to improve the way we do things. Changes that benefit all of us.
Something I want my viewers to do is to subscribe to my channel. But you will never hear me say, well, I worked really hard, guys. I dedicated so many hours to this. Please subscribe. Look, who cares if I worked hard? Who cares if I've spent days creating this video? The real questions are, does it offer value to you? And why should you dedicate your time to subscribing when you could be doing anything else that you want? Habit number 5 is something that I try to use every single day with every interaction that I have and with every comment that I reply to, and it is this: seek first to understand, then to be understood. Now, imagine there are 2 people and a tree with 5 apples on it. They're both too short to reach the apples, but if one of them sits on the other's shoulders, he can reach all 5 of the apples. This is called synergy. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Now, I'll be the first one to admit that you can't achieve this with everyone, but you should always be looking for opportunities to create synergy. With every synergistic opportunity you create, you can gather many more apples than you otherwise would by yourself. Habit number 6 is synergize. A man has been trying to cut down a tree for hours, and after a while his neighbor can't take it anymore, goes over and says, "You know, if you sharpen the saw, you'll be able to cut it down faster." And the man replies, "But sharpening the saw is going to take time." Now, we might laugh at this story, but we do the same thing all the time. We can't find 30 minutes a day, 4 times a week, to go to the gym. Our health deteriorates to a point where we're physically incapable of being effective. We can't read a book for 15 minutes a day and mentally stimulate ourselves. No, these things take too much time. And then we have the audacity to ask for little tips and tricks on how to be effective. It's like telling your engineer, don't worry about the foundation, where can we get the magic bricks that will float in the air? Habit number 7 is sharpen the saw. And these are the 7 habits of highly effective people by Steven Covey.